What is up, guys? Thick Kackis here. Thank you so much for stopping by, and today we are going to be discussing, frankly, the future of the Destiny franchise, because there's what I believe a significant update to Bungie's philosophy and thinking that just came out and really showcased where Destiny is heading. And so, let's get started. So, everyone is constantly speculating about what is beyond the next season, the next expansion, the next year for Destiny. We're always looking ahead because Destiny is an ever-evolving thing, and always trying to predict what's going to come next is a very intriguing thing to do. But there's been a term that's been thrown around since the beginning. Well, frankly, since Destiny 2 was a thing. There was a notion that when Destiny came out, original Destiny, there might not ever be a sequel. It might just be Destiny, and that game is built upon, frankly, forever. And a good example of this is something like World of Warcraft. There's not necessarily going to be a World of Warcraft 2, there's simply expansions and updates and so on built upon that essentially forever. Destiny could have potentially done the same thing until Destiny 2 was officially a thing. That confirmed that we could have a restart and we could have the next chapter in the Destiny franchise. So ever since Destiny 2 was a thing, Destiny 3 has always been a concept that's been thrown out. I see it all the time in comments, on Twitter, etc. There's people right now saying, you know what, Destiny 2 is not in a great spot right now, I'm going to wait for Destiny 3. When's Destiny 3 coming out? You see Destiny 3 thrown around a lot. But is it really going to come? Well, again, we have a pretty significant update that directly references that. So, within the latest weekly update, Bungie talked about how they're essentially overhauling Eververse, and a lot of the stuff that's currently available for purchase is going to be put back into the game space, and you can earn it for actually playing the game. It's actually a pretty significant update. I've done a video on it, definitely check it out if you haven't. But within that update, almost like a throwaway line, actually again reveals a lot about the future of Destiny. So, when talking about core playlist rewards, so Strikes, Gambit, and Crucible, Bungie says we're adding a new set of armor for the core playlists, Strikes, Gambit, and Crucible. This armor shares a new set of geometry with decals and shaders specific to the activity, and then they say we will create new sets like this for each year. Example, year 4, year 5, year 6, etc. So, I mean, there you have it. That is showcasing that Bungie is, essentially committing to at least 3 more years of Destiny 2 support. And the etc. would honestly indicate even more so. And this line really puts into question if Destiny 3 is ever coming out. And if it does come out, at least it's not going to be for several more years. Because if you think about it, so year 4 begins this year, 2020, in the fall, and that's if Bungie uses the same calendar that they've been using for years, which likely they would. However, with the current, coronavirus situation and all of that stuff, there could be some delays. Like, I wouldn't be surprised to see certain expansions delayed, but if they're not, fall 2020, year 4 begins. That means year 5 begins fall 2021, year 6 begins fall 2022, and that would mean that Bungie has specifically said year 6, if the etc. turns into Destiny 3, that's not going to launch until fall 2023. And so the next obvious question to that statement is, well, why? Why wouldn't Bungie want a Destiny 3? That would certainly generate a lot of hype, and you saw that with Destiny 2. A lot of people leave Destiny throughout its path. Like, they get bored of the game, they find new games, and that's not necessarily to the fault of Destiny all the time. Like, again, sometimes the game is not in the best space. You have periods where the game kind of dies off, where there isn't a lot of content, and you see people leaving, in those spaces. You see people not liking certain expansions, whatever, but they leave. Sometimes they come back, but sometimes they don't. And so when you have a full sequel, and again, you saw this a lot with Destiny 2, a lot of people that kind of enjoyed Destiny 1 for a certain period of time but left for whatever reason came back for the sequel. Like, oh, I enjoyed Destiny 1 for a period of time, Destiny 2 is the next big thing, of course, they've probably fixed all my issues, I can't wait for it. And Destiny 2 sold incredibly well. Of course, it didn't really work out. The player base completely flatlined within a matter of months. It was really bad, and of course, things turned around with Forsaken, all of that stuff. We know the history of Destiny 2, but the fact of the matter is that making a sequel to your game is extremely lucrative, and it helps you rebuild things from the ground up, fix certain things that aren't maybe fixable in this current version of Destiny 2, and so again it begs the question, why wouldn't Bungie want that? Well, firstly, resources. Right? When they made Destiny 2, of course, they had Activision, which supplied them with two completely different studios, Vicarious Visions and High Moon Studios, so that meant that Bungie could work on Destiny 2 while other parts of Bungie and other resources, other studios, other things provided by Activision could be used to focus on Destiny 1. They could make something like Age of Triumph, which definitely helped ease the wait period for Destiny 2, while at the same time have a considerable amount of Bungie working on Destiny 2. Right now, without Activision, it's just Bungie. So if you have a considerable amount of the studio working on Destiny 3, is the rest of the people assigned to Destiny 2, are they even going to be able to put out full new seasons? Like, I know Season of the Worthy hasn't gone super well, but even Season of Dawn was not terrible. Shadowkeep, that's a pretty big injection of content, and from the looks of it, the summer season and then the fall expansion in 2020 look to be pretty sizable as well. And so this means that with Bungie having less resources without Activision, they may not be able to dedicate a portion of the studio to be working on a sequel while still supporting the current game. So you would basically have one or the other. They either continue to work and support Destiny 2, or they make Destiny 3 and they kind of abandon Destiny 2 for however much time it takes to make Destiny 3. And that, when you really think about that scenario, and that's something I think a lot of people haven't thought about, yeah, it gets to be a pretty interesting question. Do you still want a Destiny 3 if it means 2 years of no content for Destiny 2, for example, right? But resources aside, there's another big factor, and that is just the practicality of making a sequel, in the sense of, why do you need a sequel to this game? What types of things can you accomplish with a sequel with Destiny 3 that you can't potentially accomplish with Destiny 2? They've already overhauled Destiny 2 multiple times with Forsaken, and then with Armor 2.0, and Weapons 2.0 is something that they've thrown out there, maybe coming in the future. So it's not like Destiny 2 can't change dramatically. Do you need a sequel for that? Well, Bungie has kind of proven, no, you really don't. And if we look back at what happened with Destiny 2, a lot of players were very upset that all of their hard-earned progress from Destiny 1 didn't carry over. All of those god rolls, all of those exotics, their characters really did not transfer over, that you essentially started from scratch. Now, the storyline with the Cabal, Red Legion invading and destroying the city, and all of your armory is destroyed, that did make sense for that context, and, I for one was kind of excited to start fresh because I was hoping that it would be a complete overhaul, that we'd see a whole new loot system and everything would be improved. Boy, was I and many other people wrong. So, not only did you lose all your progress, but it wasn't even a step up. If anything, it was a step down into Destiny 2 Vanilla. Again, that's since been fixed, but that was not making players happy. And if you want to talk about unhappy players, I mean, when Luke Smith announced that they're potentially looking at reintroducing limited infusion so that a weapon would have a shelf life essentially and you couldn't infuse it forever, so you would have stuff like the Mindbender's Ambition. That shotgun is absolutely everywhere, but eventually you wouldn't be able to infuse it anymore and it would fall behind in the meta. You'd still be able to use it in the Crucible where your light level doesn't matter and so on, but yeah, when that got announced, players were furious, saying that I don't want my loot to disappear, this is ridiculous, you're forcing us to play a certain way. Players were very upset, just because certain gear wouldn't carry over. Well, imagine if Destiny 3 came out and none of your gear carried over, right? Now, you could argue, well, they could make a system where Destiny 3 is a thing and your entire character and all your loot would carry over into Destiny 3, and they very much could. But then it goes back to that previous statement I made where you've got to ask the question, what can you do in Destiny 3 that you can't do in Destiny 2? And if your entire armory is compatible with Destiny 3, like, is it really truly worth a sequel? Why not just keep building on Destiny 2, right? So I think when you truly think about it and consider all these different factors, Destiny 3 as a thing becomes less attractive, and just changing, supporting, and evolving Destiny 2 becomes a lot more reasonable. And this statement of the year 4, year 5, year 6, etc., that etc. absolutely kills me. They could have gone year 4, etc., right? And just said, yeah, yearly we're going to do this. But the fact that they stretch it all the way out to year 6 and then still say etc. means that they are going to be supporting Destiny 2 for just so many years. And as a fan of Destiny 2, I think that's fantastic news. It's easy to be disenfranchised when there's a season like Season of the Worthy that hasn't gone over so well. But you've also got to remember that even Shadowkeep and Season of the Undying were pretty good pieces of content. Season of the Outlaw with Forsaken was absolutely bumpin'. Season of the Opulence, bumping, right? There's a lot of great seasons within Destiny 2. There's a lot of fun to be had, and you're going to have some down points, but you have a lot of up points as well. So at the end of the day, that looks like where we're at with the future of the Destiny franchise, that Bungie is committed to, just as I said, improving Destiny 2 for years. But there's a couple of issues with that. Yes, I've been kind of making it seem like improving Destiny 2 is the clear and obvious approach, but new consoles are coming out. A new generation is approaching, and while they've actually stated publicly that Destiny 2 will be available on the next-gen consoles, how much of an upgrade is that going to be? If they can actually achieve 60 frames on the new gen of consoles, I think that's already a huge step ahead of where they are right now. But Destiny 2 will become just an old game. New things will come out. It'll look worse and worse as the years go on. It's also getting just ridiculously big in terms of size, both in the scope of the game and in actual practical gigabytes. Like, how much of your hard drive is taken up by Destiny 2? A ridiculous amount. Creating Destiny 3 for the next generation of consoles would make sense. That is an attractive option. And so continuing to support Destiny 2 may be the most practical thing that Bungie is doing. Is it truly the best? Well, we're going to have to wait and see. Guys, thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed this video, found it interesting. If you did, please remember to support it by simply liking and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at @RickKackis. That's linked in the description down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.